Welcome to this training session. We're going to go over an overview of Brightspace, which is the platform that we're using for the digital specialist portfolios. And we're going to go over it from the point of view of a candidate and the point of view of a training officer. So when you first registered onto Brightspace, you'll get an email that will tell you that you're registered and your username, which will be your IBMS membership number. If you're a training officer who doesn't have membership with IBMS, you'll be given a unique identifying number. So you've got the web address that you go to. So you go to the web address and that will take you here. You say forgot password and then you put in your username and submit and you'll get another email, and that email will look like this, and it will tell you to click the reset password link below. So you click the reset password, you put in your password twice and then save it and go back to the login screen, which will be here. So I'm just going to log in as a learner and we will have a look at what Brightspace looks like for the candidate. If I can remember the password. So the home page contains all of the modules that you've been allocated as part of your specialist portfolio selection. So this one is primarily the blood establishment transfusion practice modules, the ones with the little bags of blood. There's also a quality module, and there is a further submission, final submission module. So the quality module and the final submission module are part of all of the specialist portfolios, and everybody will complete those modules. And all of the modules look alike and really have the same type of content apart from the final submission module. So you can search for your courses. So if you just type in part of a word, it will find everything that's got that part of the word in it. If you wanted to pin something at the top, you click on the little three dots and then say pin, and you just click on the little pin to unpin it. You can also view your modules by clicking on the little tile selection at the top, and it just gives you a list view, and you can pin them from here as well. So all of the modules, as I say, have got the same content. So this is one that hasn't been looked up before, and I can tell because it's got 0 of 2 completed. You can either say get started or launch unit, and it takes you to the same place, the module information. The module information is the same for all of the modules. It then takes you to the module aims, which are obviously different for each module, and then it takes you to the learning outcomes and the indicative content. The learning outcomes are what you have to meet through your 2 pieces of evidence. So you've got your Q&A set with the training officer or discussed, arranged with the training officer, and then you've got your additional piece of evidence is selected by the candidate. So those 2 pieces of evidences have to cover all of the learning outcomes within the module. The indicative content often outlines background knowledge that might be required to help meet the learning outcomes, and this could be assessed during the examination, during the viva. So 2 of 2. So now that we've looked at that, it's going to say, well done, you've seen it. The resources section, this one's got nothing in it at the moment, so it comes up like that, but the resource section is going to contain things like videos, curated content, maybe with lists of journal articles, guidance documents to look at. There could be case studies. And the resources is going to be updated through the specialist advisory panel meetings, which are twice a year. So that's when the content will be looked at. Is there anything that needs to change? Or is there something we could add to it? Submission of evidence, these are the assignments. So this is where you complete the evidence submission and say that you've completed that particular module. So this just tells you what you need to submit. And there's 3 pieces of evidence that need to be submitted over the next 2 sections. So you've got your Q&A, you've got your additional piece of evidence, and then you've got the reflection. So a submission of evidence, here you would submit the Q&A and the candidate's choice of evidence. So you can either upload directly from your computer. If you choose existing, that comes from your locker. You may or may not choose to use your locker, because to save to the locker, you have to upload it to your computer first anyway. But if you weren't submitting immediately, you might choose to put it into the locker because then you know that that's where you're only putting signed pieces of evidence. Once you've uploaded or selected from your locker, it'll come up with a submit button and you would submit your evidence. We'll go through that later. And then you've got your reflection. So you would have to download this document, write in it, save it, send it to your training officer, and they will have to make sure that the appropriate individual signs and says that you've been assessed to work in accordance with standard laboratory procedures. So when you're completing this, it's just make sure that your reflection is actually on the training and that you talk about, or that you at least mention the why you've selected the additional piece of evidence. So what was the learning from that? Training officers who are reviewing this, obviously, if you don't think the candidate has met the criteria, then you can make some comments to them and get them to redo it. So once this is completed, you would save it, upload it, it goes back into the candidate's portfolio, and then they can submit it. So when we complete this module, we've not completed anything because obviously we haven't submitted. So because that's 2 assignments, looking at it doesn't complete it. So if you ever want to come back to the home page, then you can use the little IBMS icon at the top here. So if I click on that now, it'll bring me back to my home page. And then I've got my name here, the little blue tile which contains my portfolio. And this is going to be the important thing when we're looking at sending work to the training officer, and obviously the training officer will be able to put work back into my portfolio. The training officer can't see my portfolio. They can only see what you send to them. So 2 ways that you can upload, you can just add to the portfolio and then assign it to a particular module, or you can open up a module and it will automatically be assigned there. So the danger of just adding it, so if I show you, I'm going to upload this and I'm just putting it into the portfolio in general. Now I might say, oh, it's Q&A. I might say it's linked and select a course and then share it, but I didn't actually press link here. And if I don't do that, and it's easy to not do that, then it won't send it because it's not actually linked to a module. So now that I link it, you can see that it's unshared itself, and I would have to share it again in order to send it to my training officers. So from here, the training officers, they would download it. You can see this evidence has actually gone to training officer and it's came back with some bits and pieces inside it. So if my training officer had sent me back work, I would be able to open it. I would be able to download it. It's always going to come up with source. So it's important that you come up with a nomenclature, a naming system from your files, and it's better if you're consistent. So if this is work that had came back from my training officer, oops, I need to make sure that my name is on this. And so they've sent this piece of work. We've added all the bits that we need to do to it actually. So I'm going to save it as a PDF now. If this is how you're going to do it, it's probably better that the training officer saves it as a PDF before they send it. So this piece of work is signed. It's my work, Learner 12. It's part of my ABO question and answers. And I could put the date in if I wanted to. just to make it nice and obvious where it came from. So I saved this into my computer. And then, as I said to you, I've got two choices. So if I was thinking, okay, I don't really want to submit this at the moment, I'm going to stick it in the locker. The locker is easy to make new folders for. You just click new folder, you call it whatever you like, and you create it. So here, for example, we've got ABO. You might want individual module folders. You might just have Q&A and additional evidence. You might think you're not going to keep it in here long. But if I wanted to put this evidence into the ABO folder, for example, I can just upload the file. I can change the destination here if I want to. I did not save that as a PDF. So if I save it as PDF, and then go back to my files and upload it. So it's uploaded, I can save it. And if I go back to the home, so I can be thinking, okay, now actually I want to upload it. So I can go to my module. It's actually evidence submitted here. And I would only want 2 pieces of evidence submitted here. But say one of these is wrong. So I've already submitted one that my training officer had to delete because it wasn't right. And let's pretend one of these is also wrong. So I'm going to need them to delete this one from the 15th of February. In the meantime, I'm going to upload this correct one. So I can do it from here, or I can choose existing and go to my locker. And so this is my locker. And I put it into ABO and click there and add it. So now I can submit it. And we'll remember that that ABO from the 15th for Learner 12 needs to be deleted. So the training officer would do that. So if I go back to my content, I can have a look at my assignments and I can see how many submissions there's been and how many files. So a submission is just when you say submit. So I could have 2 or 3 files in one submission. Well, not 3 because we're only looking for 2, but I could have 2 files in one submission. So then it would say 1 submission, 2 files. And you can have a look at what those are. And it will list them here. And it will also tell you if things have been deleted, etc. So I've also got progress, so I can have a look at progress. So for each of the modules, I can go to my assignments and it will tell me how many files that I have in them. So I would be expecting 2 files in the submission of evidence, and I'd expect 1 file in the reflective statement. And you can do the same for all of your modules. So you also have awards transcript. Now, this is going to be useful if you're doing a multidiscipline portfolio. As you can see, there's nothing at the moment, but that's what you would do when you had completed. So when you've completed and submitted and uploaded all of your modules, you could download your transcription of your modules. Now, obviously, without your certificate, your specialist diploma, it wouldn't necessarily mean much, but you'll be able to get it from there. So that's pretty much it as a learner, to be honest. There's not much more that you need to know about that, except maybe the final submissions. Could just mention that now. So the final submission, if we launch the unit here, it's just information on submitting. And when you submit this in its entirety, when it's done, this is saying I'm ready for assessment. So everything else should be submitted at that point. And then what you've got is a record of training reviews. So upload the record of training reviews between the candidate and the training officers. And then you've got the final submission, which is to submit the laboratory's repertoire and candidate scope of practice signed by the manager. And that would be uploaded and submitted. I mean, you've submitted those, that would be complete and you'd be saying you're ready for assessment. So let's log out and have a little look if we're a training officer. So I get the exact same kind of homepage of whatever my candidates have got. My toolbar is slightly different. I've got quick eval. And my toolbar is different when I go into the module. So although here I have got my portfolio, that's not the portfolio area where I see what the candidates have submitted. To do that, I have to open up one of the modules and then I get this portfolio bar here. So if you can see on the home page, there's no portfolio bar, but if I go into a module, I get the portfolio on the bar. So if I go into a portfolio, I can see all of my learners, my candidates for this module. None of these have submitted any work relating to the release of blood components. But I know that I was expecting work in ABO and D typing, so I'm going to have a look at that one. Go to the portfolio, and I can see that I've got new evidence from Learner 12. So if I want to review this, I can have a quick look here, see if it all looks okay. If it doesn't look okay, and then I can immediately just type a comment and say, oh, you've missed question 5 or question 6 or whatever it happens to be. If it's okay and I need to have a look through it, then I would download it. Edit it, so it might include adding the signature, it might include, I might want to put in a text box to type in if I don't want to type in it, especially if it's maybe beside diagrams or pictures. I'm going to make it purple because that's the colour I like to write in for my trainees. And then it could be about, you know, you might write something like, tell me the principles when we meet. Obviously not for this particular example, but you're telling them that you're going to do that. You might want to add your name and the date that you've looked at the evidence. It might be that you're adding in some comments here and you're not going to do a text box. Maybe you're just going to type it in. If this was a piece of work that I was reviewing with a candidate at the time, I could be making notes or comments on things, questions that I'm asking them. So make a note of the question, just make a note of some of the points that they've said, right areas that we've discussed. So I could be typing in that as I go, and then I could always put my date of whenever it happened. And if this had all been signed off now, as I say, this is where I might sign it off, the evidence, and then save it as a PDF, just because then it shouldn't be changed. So this was the reflection. So Learner 12 reflection. I'm going to save that as a PDF. And then, as I'm still the training officer, I'm going to be uploading this into Learner 12's portfolio. So I hadn't added anything there. I could have said this has been although since they were at the meeting with me, they'd probably already know. And so you can see this has now got feedback's been provided. So as I said, this one now says it's the reflection, but I don't know if it's that it's the signed version. So when you're saving it, so although this is the last one looked at, you'd have to kind of go in and look and see if that was the signed version. So it's maybe worth thinking about how you're naming it here. For example, when you sign it off, or if you're just going to do it by version number to make it easy. So the candidate will now be coming into this, and then they will have to save and submit that as the reflection for the ABO. You can look at the evidence in different ways. So you can view by students. So from here, if let me see what Learner 13 has sent me, and I can see evidence that they have sent me. You can do that with any of your learners. So they may not have sent you anything. You can view it by evidence. So you can look at all of your evidence for this particular module. Or you can go back to students. You can view it as list view. You can see it in this form if it makes it a little bit easier. And then, as I said earlier, you can, if somebody submitted something and then they tell you, oh, I've submitted the wrong thing, submitted something that's got patient identifiable information, hopefully not, but they might have submitted the non-signed version, then you can go in and delete. So we know it was the ABO for Learner 12 from the 15th of February. So you can open it up, you can have a look, you can go this one, okay, deleting it, yes. Because we've submitted it to sort of the portfolio as a final version, but we haven't submitted it yet to the IBMS for viewing. You can do things here like email users with no submissions. So people who haven't sent you anything for this particular module, if you were expecting it, I mean, obviously you could delete ones if some you weren't expecting for some reason, and you could write to them and say, you need to send this to me by whatever date. The submission log will give you information. So you can see this was one for Learner 12 that was deleted, and you can restore it, and it gives you all of the dates. So it's kind of easy to see what's happened. If you press on each of these, and it will show you whichever one you're clicking on. And if you kind of unclick them, it will show you everything. So you can see here, this is the one that we deleted. So it was submission 230. And if we wanted to, we could restore it. But we're not going to in this case. You can see that that one was restored. So if we go back to the home screen, so your quick evaluation will show you all of your submissions for all of your people. So you can look at a particular one. You can look at it by activities. So for this particular module, for this particular module, etc. You can see how many submissions. Now, the submissions, remember, are not what's been put to your portfolio to review. These are submissions that have been the things that have been submitted for assessment. You've got a locker as a training officer, but again, you can't upload into the candidate's portfolio from there. So you're probably going to be uploading from your computer. So that's pretty much it. And so you go into the module in order to look at the portfolio. You can look at your assignments, you can delete your assignments if they've been submitted from there. You use the portfolio to review the candidate's work and upload back into their portfolio. The learner would then look at that and resubmit if required. And then when the final piece has been signed off, you can record it as signed, and then they can either save it and decide when they're going to submit it or just submit it straight away. So if we go back and have a quick look at the learner, so we had the ABO typing. So if we have a look at the assignments, and through their progress, you can see that at the moment there is 2 live submissions, and these 2 were deleted. So that's where you can see sort of details of what's been submitted and if it's still there. So that's the basis of Brightspace, basic overview. You can see how the learner can navigate, how they can send work to the training officer, how the training officer can review and send work back, do the final submission, and then decide if you're going to save it and submit later or whether you're going to submit immediately. Only 3 evidences to be submitted, and then from the final submission, you've got the record of training reviews between the candidate and the training officers, and then the candidate's sort of scope of practice, or the laboratory scope of practice, and what the candidate does, signed off by the manager to be submitted. And as I say, this one will trigger the IBMS to say, right, we need to find you an assessor, an examiner. So all of the work should be completed by that point.